Welcome to the Upside Journal podcast. In 2026, domestic venture capital is struggling with extended exit timelines and dry powder gridlock. Yet, a sophisticated layer of cross-border diaspora business networks is quietly unlocking predictable, counter-cyclical returns in AI and climate tech. Today, we're breaking down the hidden alpha traditional funds are missing. We are deconstructing LemFi, a category-defining asset that has engineered the next generation of diaspora financial infrastructure. To really deconstruct how LemFi completely stripped away traditional remittance friction, we're framing this explainer as a clinical investment memo. We'll be hitting the global remittance paradox, their regulatory operational moat, back-end tech and stablecoin settlement, unit economics, systemic risks, and finally, their path to IPO. Let's just dive right into the data.
Act 1. The global remittance paradox.
So let's establish the macro opportunity here. In 2025, annual remittance flows into sub-Saharan Africa alone hit a staggering $55 billion. That is a highly predictable, incredibly resilient flow of capital that actually grew by 5% year over year, completely shrugging off global inflation. But here's why this matters to your portfolio. That $55 billion, it was completely bottlenecked. The legacy infrastructure processing it was fundamentally built for single jurisdiction reliability, definitely not modern multi-currency liquidity.
The divide here is just stark. Legacy correspondent banking relies on this tangled, archaic chain of intermediary banks and SWIFT integration. What does that mean in practice? Exorbitant 7% to 10% transfer fees and incredibly low trust. On the flip side, modern diaspora infrastructure uses digital-first rails, which slashes those average fees down to just 2.1%. By specifically designing for the gap between heavily regulated Western markets and high-friction emerging markets, these diaspora founders are capturing multi-currency liquidity at a fraction of the legacy cost.
Moving on to Act 2, the regulatory operational moat. Just look at the sheer capital and compliance weight you need simply to play the game here. LemFi has masterfully leveraged regulatory arbitrage. In the UK, holding an EMI license means locking up £85.2 million in regulatory capital, plus safeguarding another $120.6 million in client funds. Over in the US, they've nailed down 14 state money transmitter licenses, backing that up with a $4.2 million spend on automated KYC and travel rule compliance. And across 11 African nations, spinning up international money transfer operator licenses cost an average of $1.2 million upfront per country. Why do these massive numbers matter to us as investors? Because this heavy compliance totally transforms from a pure cost center into an absolutely insurmountable barrier to entry. Exactly. Securing these approvals across more than 10 global regulatory jurisdictions acts as a rigorous talent verification mechanism. Whether they're adhering to the super strict US FinCEN travel rule or ensuring their automated credit scoring algorithms are fully compliant with the 2025 EU AI Act, navigating this massive web of global banking essentially verifies operational excellence. You literally cannot fake this level of institutional compliance.
All right, Act 3, back-end tech and stablecoin settlement.
This timeline right here is the ultimate proof of concept. Your traditional correspondent banking path takes upwards of 48 to 72 hours just to settle cross-border funds, and that's assuming it isn't a bank holiday. But LemFi partnered with BVNK and Tether to shift settlement directly onto regulated stablecoin rails. The result? 87% of their cross-border back-end flows now settle on-chain in under 2 minutes. 2 minutes! This structural shift completely bypasses legacy bottlenecks, slashing float costs by 42% year over year, while keeping the actual cryptocurrency mechanics 100% invisible to the end consumer. So the crucial thing to grasp here is this structural layer of API-first banking. Think of it as the core architectural edge of modern diaspora networks. LemFi is utilizing automated integrations, dynamic foreign exchange routing, localized compliance engines, and instant settlement rails. To put it in plain English, they've automated the background plumbing so money just routes itself instantly, almost like sending an email. That tech translates to processing $1 billion in monthly transactions with a success rate standing at a staggering 99.6%. That is what real cross-border settlement infrastructure looks like. But here is the multi-million-dollar strategic question that kinda interrupts this whole technical teardown. If you're offering a zero-fee remittance product to consumers on primary corridors, how on earth do you achieve an 18% EBITDA margin? That brings us to Act 4, unit economics and growth. The answer to that question lies right in the back-end financial mechanics. Looking at their $48.6 million in FY 2025 revenue, you see that the quote-unquote zero-fee consumer front end is actually heavily subsidized by incredibly lucrative foreign exchange spreads. That alone makes up 64% of their total revenue. Another 18% comes from institutional B2B services, where they're handling much larger ticket sizes for SMEs trading with Africa. So here's your key takeaway. They are monetizing the movement of the liquidity, not the consumer's initial transfer. And this right here is the operator's playbook for scaling cross-border platforms, what we call the repeatable flywheel framework. Step 1, you secure Tier 1 regulatory licenses globally, so you firmly own the rails. Once those are locked in, Step 2 is optimizing your liquidity management across continents using those stablecoin settlements and dynamic hedging we talked about. Finally, Step 3, you compound user trust through totally seamless execution. This fluid, repeatable flywheel is what allowed them to scale to over 1.5 million active Diaspora members, basically turning localized trust into a massive, highly engaged user base.
Let's pivot to Act 5, Systemic Risks and Threats.
Now, the systemic threats here are deeply material, and we have to view them objectively. First up, extreme macroeconomic headwinds like currency devaluations. The Nigerian naira dropped roughly 24% against the dollar in 2024, which obviously compresses those FX spread margins. Second, you've got capital controls and central bank FX reserve limitations. That's a persistent risk of sudden corridor shutdowns. Third, scaling in heavily saturated Western markets has pushed customer acquisition costs way up to around $180 to $220 per user. And finally, there's the existential threat of cannibalization by pure peer-to-peer decentralized finance. I mean, USDC cross-border volume is already hitting $120 billion. Protecting against those kinds of threats requires immense capital. Just look at the 42% year-over-year surge in their annual compliance spend. It jumped from $12.9 million in 2024 up to $18.4 million in 2025. This covers everything from your strict AML and KYC screenings to deploying advanced AI-driven predictive fraud detection systems. It is, without a doubt, an incredibly expensive moat to maintain. And our final analytical act, Act 6, the path to IPO. Tracing their chronological scaling arc reveals a really clear, highly aggressive trajectory. They went from an initial launch in 2021 straight to a $33 million Series A in 2023, and then accelerated right into a $53 million Series B led by Highland Europe in 2025. Given their 78% revenue growth in 2025 and this expanding regulatory footprint across multiple emerging market jurisdictions, they are barreling toward a projected $300 to $500 million IPO window by 2027. Or, realistically, a massive strategic acquisition by a legacy payments firm that is absolutely desperate for scale. And here is exactly why that kind of valuation is entirely justified. The true endgame of this Diaspora financial infrastructure isn't just remittances. It's about taking those 1.5 million active users and all that rich transaction telemetry and leveraging it to dominate adjacent high-margin markets. They're actively expanding into a $300 to $400 billion credit total addressable market for immigrants, while also targeting the $80 billion B2B SME goods flow. That right there is the infrastructure play, scaling institutional trust into total financial dominance. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to ponder. Will legacy banks acquire this infrastructure to try and save themselves, or are Diaspora operators just going to replace them entirely? Capital has become highly commoditized, but the infrastructure to execute high-trust, cross-border deal flow is rare. To get ahead of these macro signals and access our premium investor network, subscribe to the Upside Journal and join our membership communities. See you in the next Daily Drop.